morning, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Give everybody a chance to join. So I guess my microphone was muted. Good morning. We'll get started in a few minutes after let everybody join us. Thank you for coming in early. Okay, I posted the link in, oops. I posted a link in the chat box, guys. Today's reference photo, this one, if you'd like to. I'm going to keep it on the screen right here, but if you want to save it on your device and paint later or something like that, the link is in the chat box. So you might want to open and download it or something like that. It's on Unsplash, so it's free. Trying to think what else I need to prepare. I might just sketch those birds while we're waiting, so we don't have to spend time on that later. So if anybody's painting with me, that's what I'm going to do. Let's sketch them. Alrighty, good morning once again, everybody. Welcome to Up Studio. I see some more people are joining. I posted the reference photo, like I said, the link to the reference photo to these birds in the chat box. So if you wanted to download and save it, I think messages might disappear after we leave the live room on the website. So if you want to just download and save it or save the link, so go ahead. We still have 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Give everybody a chance to join us.
Hey, Howard, come here. Look, check this out. This is her,
So what I did while we were all joining, I just sketched out the parrots on my paper. This is 300-pound paper. You guys know that that's my preference, right? And I know it's expensive, but this is the best quality you can get, and I save money by painting on both sides of the paper. So, and also if you buy sheets, loose sheets, those 22 by 30 big sheets, then it's more economical than buying pads or blocks. Okay, and then I just tear them. This is a quarter sheet, so it's 15 by 11, and that's plenty for us to paint on, especially this kind of exercises that we do. So I'm trying to think what else I need to do to make this all go smoothly for us. We'll be only maybe 45 minutes, an hour. It's not a, I don't want to make this session super long. I know everybody's busy. Everybody has stuff to do on Saturday. So we'll just play with our watercolors a little bit. If you plan on painting with me, get set up and get your paper and sketch out the birds, or you can transfer the photo. If you print it on just regular paper, you can rub charcoal on the back side and then just put it on your watercolor paper and just transfer the outline, and that will help you to draw them accurately. I've shown this method many times. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Or if you have that special transfer paper that they sell for watercolor, you can transfer it this way. Just don't use that regular typewriter transfer paper because it's wax based and the lines, the watercolor will not adhere to the lines. If you have questions, guys, type them in the chat box. I think it will be easier. I'll take a look from time to time. I can see the chat box from here on my computer. I think it will be easier than just, unmuting yourself and interrupting the presentation. So I would appreciate if you just typed your questions. I don't have anybody helping me today, no moderators, so I think I'll just read your chat messages from time to time. And like I said, it's not going to be long, and you're all members of my community of watercolor heroes, so you have access to me, all the time. You can leave a comment anytime. If you think of something that you would like to know, or you want to post your painting, you're welcome to post it in the community chat, and I will get notification and I will take a look at it and answer, and we can, discuss things, and I can look at your painting and stuff like that. So, alrighty. I see we have quite a few people joined. I'm also streaming live on YouTube. It's an unlisted video, and I can send you all a link afterwards, because YouTube is going to add subtitles, closed captioning after a while, after they process the video. So if somebody needs closed captioning, then it's going to be available on the YouTube video, because my website, there are no automatic subtitles. Alrighty, I think, yep, I'm looking at the clock, it's 10 o'clock. Welcome once again. Beautiful Saturday morning here in Houston. Let's start painting. Let's work a little bit on our art this Saturday morning and talk about painting with primary palette. If I know a lot of you guys took my From Zero to Watercolor Hero beginner class in watercolor, and that was one of the subjects we talked about, right? If you just started painting, it's a good idea to get all the primary colors or colors that are close to primary. I use Daniel Smith watercolors. So Daniel Smith has special primary color set. They tell us that primary red will be Perylene red, then Hansa yellow medium will be our primary yellow, and French ultramarine will be our primary blue. The colors I will use for this painting, this is not chemistry or physics experiment, so we can kind of do what we think is appropriate as artists. So the colors I will be using are Senilia red, which is their primary red, and I'm going to use New Gamboge, which is slightly warmer than primary yellow, than Hansa yellow medium. And what do I mean by warmer? It means that that color is slightly closer to orange than primary yellow. But I have it on my palette, and I think it really works for this subject. So that's what I'm going to use. And for blue, I'm going to use ultramarine. I think it's just ultramarine blue, not French ultramarine. I'm not sure why Daniel Smith says that French ultramarine is primary blue. I think ultramarine blue is a lot closer to primary blue. French ultramarine has a little bit of red in it. It's a little purplish. But that totally doesn't matter. Just use the colors that you have, that you like. I'm actually looking at the wings on this parrot, and this is definitely cobalt blue. So if you wanted to use that, that's fine. If you wanted to use more orangey, warmer red, that will work too. The goal today is to understand the principle of using primary colors and painting with them, and how they work in a painting and how they interact with each other and with the overall subject of our painting, right? So that's what we will be talking about today. Like I said, it's one of the subjects in my Zero to Watercolor Hero class, and I wanted to do an additional demonstration because in the class we only talk about flowers. So I thought these birds, another subject, will be an interesting kind of angle to look at the primary palette as well. Okay, the red is Signalia red. Let me see if I have the tube so I can show it to you. I might have used it all up, and yeah, I don't think I have it anymore. I must have used it all up and threw it away. In Daniel Smith, Perylene red will be the primary color. I have Senilia red, and I have Winsor & Newton Winsor red. These are all primary red. So you just need a red that's not too orange and not too purple. So something in the middle, the closest to primary color that you can find on your palette, will work fine. All right, so let's start painting, and then I will show you some paintings, and I will talk about primary palette some more, because I will need to stop at a certain point and let things dry. So without further delay, let's start painting. I'm going to start, I'm looking at this painting, this photo, sorry, and the outlines of the parrot are pretty defined, of those birds. But they have very subtle kind of color variations inside of them. So I think I'm going to spritz my paper with water to just help the colors blend a little bit easier. And then we will work on the details after the first layer is dry. So let's see. How do we want to start? We'll just start with the birds. And I want to capture, like I said, all these color variations. I will have to mix colors, of course, because I am using 3 colors. I don't have green, and we have green in the reference. So there will be some pure color that I will be using on certain areas. There will be, see how this is more orange. So there will be some mixing of colors. How do we get orange if we're using primary colors? We mix yellow with red, right? So we will need to mix this. We will need to mix this. And let's look at the tails. So this is a lot of orange and a lot of kind of neutral tones. This has a lot of purple in it. How do we get purple from primary colors? We mix red and blue, right? So, and the shadows are very dark, but we're not going to use black or gray or anything. We will stick to our primary palette, only 3 colors, right? So we will need to figure out how to do all this without introducing other colors, and their beaks are black, so we will paint all this with just 3 colors. So our first task will be to put a wash of color and to keep certain areas just pure primary colors and to let some areas mix, right? So this is our first layer. So let's get started. And you know, of course, guys, that, you know, with watercolor, even if you paint something, the first layer of something, and it doesn't look right, we can add another layer, kind of add more color, re-wet this area, or we can lift paint, right, and make corrections. So I often hear people say watercolor is so terrible, you can't make changes. Yes, you can. It's just you need to use certain techniques to do it. It's not the same as with other mediums. So as you see, in some areas I'm applying pure color where I see pure red or pure yellow, and in some areas I am mixing red and yellow to get orange. So I'm getting close to this area on the wings. And I know, guys, it's kind of might be a little hard to paint along with me because we have to move fairly quickly, and I know some people prefer to just watch first and paint later. And we're getting closer to his pants on his legs. Let's make it a little more orange, balance the top. And the beauty of painting with limited palette is that, see, his feet are dark, but if I want to cover that area with yellow, that's fine, because I can always put another layer on top and it's going to look fine. Okay, with the wing, I'll wait a little bit. Let's see. There are some yellow feathers. No, I'm not going to paint this. Okay, let's wait with this area. Let's paint the other guy with red. Or girl, probably. I don't know. So kind of. Maybe it's a male and a female. And to create orange, guys, you see that I'm not actually mixing colors on my palette, right? I pick up yellow on my brush and I pull that red. The red, that's Signalia red especially, is a very intense color. So just pulling it out of that first little area that I painted is sufficient for me to get the orange. Now, if I need pure yellow, like I do here, and I need green and stuff, then I'm leaving this area for the surrounding area to dry a little bit. And we can soften the edge. This is soft, the feathers are sticking out. Then we have pure yellow. And I'm getting a little bit of yellow on the beak, but I'm not concerned about it. I'm going to use some white ink at the end to make tiny little corrections where I kind of painted a little bit too much, or, you know, not enough. So just going around my subject and trying to capture all those interesting color variations. When I saw that photo, I was like, wow, I gotta paint this. This is just very interesting, very colorful, and I thought it's going to be perfect for primary palette because these are the colors that I see here. And this is all basically red, so we can go fairly quickly here and cover this area and this area. let's see, this is the wing, so I need to leave some areas. Okay, so this is the top. So once again, why am I leaving this without applying red, right? If I paint this red, if I paint too much and I start applying blue, my colors will mix, right? And I will get purple instead of pure blue. So some areas where I need the two primers to mingle, I paint wet on wet, kind of all together, mingling colors on paper. But some areas we can't go too heavy-handed on this, right? Because some areas we don't want colors to mix, otherwise we will get a different color that's not there, right? Okay. Now let's work on the tails. Let's analyze the tails. So this one will be similar to what we did on top, right? I see some orange, it's kind of subdued, and a little bit of red, which is subdued too. I can do that with my second layer. With the first layer, I can very, boldly and calmly paint the orange and the red. So let's do that. There's just a little bit of a kind of like a blue insert there. And there's blue here, so let's see. Okay, this all can be red. So, when I paint, I used to, I will be just like, I'll just throw this paint on and figure out what's going on later. With watercolor, this doesn't always work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You need to have a plan, and you need to look at the colors and figure out what you actually, where you can go very freely and loosely and where you can't. Okay. So you don't kind of paint yourself into a corner. Okay, so this will be this guy, and now I can use my primary blue, my ultramarine blue. For some reason I sprayed it, but it dried. Now I can drop in ultramarine blue and get that purple going here in the tail. And get interesting color variations. And those birds, they look like somebody painted them, All right. What I want to do is paint, let's do that branch. I'm going to paint it with just primary blue for now. We can deal with it later. It's not so important. I just want to connect these areas so I don't get an ugly edge here. And we can kind of dry brush it a little bit to give it texture. Okay, this area is getting dry, so we can work on the wing. Let me look at the chat box. Okay, which brush I'm using? This is a flat angled brush. This is a 3/4 inch. And I'm sure, guys, you've heard me talking about these brushes a lot. These are all Princeton Heritage Series brushes. Synthetic fiber. I almost exclusively use them now. I kind of stopped using, I wouldn't say stopped using, but it seems like I'm always going to these brushes. So this brush works really great for many subjects. So I highly recommend them. All right, let's paint the wings. My yellow is covered with red, so I'm going to clean it off. Because what happens if we add all three primers together, right? If we look at the color wheel, so all three primers together will give us black, right? And that's how we're going to paint those shadows and the black areas in the birds, by mixing all three primaries. But if we want to get pure color, if we want to get a pure primary or a secondary color, we can't do that because then it will be grayish, right? All right, let's paint this guy's feathers. and I want to transition, and it's almost like nature, you know, did the same thing, because he's got green going into, you know, yellow going into green and going into blue. So he's got already that transition from one primary through secondary into another primary. So that's pretty amazing. So this is the blue. And you can see, guys, when I'm trying to paint blue on top of red, it's I get this dark purple color, which is not a bad thing, because this can be like a shadow under the wing. But if you need pure blue, you need to leave white paper and not let them mix. Or what we can do is I can grab a flat brush. Let me see if I can find a medium-sized one, and I can lift. I can lift that red. If I need a little bit bigger area. I just want to show you. I mean, it's not critical, but I just wanted to show you how I would make correction. You do need to let this dry. I'll let it dry for a second. We'll finish this wing, and then we will paint on top of it. Okay, let's paint this area. So there is blue here. And there's a little bit of, there's blue here, and there's a little bit of green. So let's paint blue, and then we can drop in the yellow and we get green. Okay, in the bottom, the wings on the bottom, there is blue. This is blue, this is light blue. Let's mix it a little bit lighter and dilute it with water. Mix this. This can be a little bit lower, and there is a darker kind of purple area here. I'll paint it with blue, and I'm going to drop it. I see a little bit of red there that I didn't paint. A bit darker area here, and I see bright blue on this side. And there is a little bit of green there, so I'm going to drop a little bit of yellow in there. Okay. How is this area doing? Still slightly damp. Let me dry it. So what we have left to do, we need to paint the feet, obviously, which will be they're kind of purplish, so we will mix red and blue. We need to paint their faces. They're not exactly white, right? So we need to do a light wash there to get it to where it needs to be. And then we'll paint all the shadows and we will be done. So let me finish this wing, and we will talk a little bit more about primary palette. Let's see, so I need pure blue here. Yeah, this looks a lot better, right? After I lifted that red. Just add the blue back, and we're basically done. So with the face, this guy's face, it's kind of in shadow, so I don't want to risk and make it too dark by mixing some paint and stuff like that. I think I can just drag some color from surrounding areas over here, and on his beak, maybe just a tiny bit of yellow on the beak, and kind of shade it. And this beak, it turns down, so it needs to be shaded slightly as well, and maybe the face can be shaded a little bit. It's pretty white here, so we don't need to do much. Okay, so just a couple of brush strokes. And I want to get those feathers to stick out a little bit more. That's why this flat angle brush is so great. See how I can very easily give him some more texture. This looks good. Maybe a little more kind of fluff on this side. Okay. Anybody has these birds, these parrots at home? They look pretty amazing. So couple tiny corrections here. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, this is my first layer, guys. So how long did it take me? Maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes to paint it. So it goes pretty quickly, this painting. Any questions? Let me see. Okay, somebody's having... Let me check the camera setting, guys. But I'm pretty sure I turned out of focus off. Yeah, focus is off. I'm not sure why it would. It might be something with the... Yeah, somebody's got the parrots for Christmas. Yeah, they are amazing. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, you're having difficulty. It might have something to do with the internet bandwidth or with Kajabi quality of transmission. Try YouTube video later, and or just let me share the YouTube link and try watching it there. I don't know if I can share it very easily from here because it's unlisted video. Let's see. Let me go to studio. I'm sorry guys, just 1 second. I'm just trying to get everybody on the same page here. Okay, here's the link to the YouTube video. See if you get better quality there. Okay, and let me show you this a little bit closer. So this is the first layer. So this is the first layer that we painted, and like I said, all we have left to do is paint the darkest areas and we will be done with these guys. Okay, I wanted to talk a little more about that color mixing, right, that we did here, and how does that work. So it will depend on your subject, right? It's very important in watercolor to have a plan before you start painting and to kind of figure out your steps, at least a little bit. Of course, you know, paintings can go in different directions, you never know. But it's good to have a plan, at least approximate plan at first. And some paintings will be very straightforward with primary palette. If you took the Watercolor Hero class, this was one of the first paintings that I demonstrated there. And it's pretty straightforward, right? We have primary yellow, primary red. In some areas, we allowed them to mix and mingle. We also mixed the green from yellow and blue, and we added the shadows with just the blue color. So the subject is not super complicated, but the subject kind of dictated us the approach, right? And the way we treated this palette. And another example, also tulips. So something similar, right? There are a couple yellows that I used and a couple reds, and by mixing and mingling those primary colors, I painted the realistic subject. But the palette is pretty the overall palette is pretty straightforward, right? There are no very subtle, complicated nuances or anything like that. And then I don't know if any of you attended this live session that I did for watercolor group on Facebook, right? For Diane's group. We also used 3 primary colors, but with a different kind of approach. We mixed them all and we let them neutralize all of them on paper, right? And the effect is quite different. Even though we use the same colors, the overall result is quite different, because we get much more subtle green. The yellow is pure in some areas, but mostly it's also mixed. And look at these areas, right? We let all these colors mix and create those beautiful kind of neutral, subtle transitions. Because the mood was different. This is fall. We wanted it to look more kind of subdued. The nature is going to sleep. So we didn't want, and fall doesn't have those super bright colors, right? And that's what we did by mixing and mingling those colors a little bit differently than we did in these paintings. So something to think about when you paint. We always talk about how great it is to use limited palette, right? One of the live sessions, like a test live session that I did here in the community, was to paint the snow scene. Again, I used primary red and I used green, secondary color, which is a complement of red, but you see the mood that I created. There is no bright colors, everything is subdued, even though we do have a focal point, but limited palette doesn't mean limited results, right? You can do whatever you need with it if you plan a little bit ahead and you understand how those colors interact with each other and what mood and what result you can create with them. Alrighty, let's see. I think my birds are mostly dry. Anybody took a look at that YouTube video? I don't mean to distract you guys, but I'm just curious if YouTube quality is higher than Kajabi that we're on right now. You can't comment on YouTube, or you can chat with me. You will need to come back here, but if you maybe have another device, you can open YouTube on or something. I'm just, this is all still in testing stages, and Kajabi is working on this community and we're working on the community, so we're still trying to figure out all the technology and get the best technology for you all so we can all be painting together. All right, so now we need to paint the shadows. I think the best way to get dark color from primaries is not to mix them on paper anymore, but to mix them on the palette, because the details are fairly small. I will have very small, very little room to work on, and mingling colors, letting it run into each other, is good on larger areas. So for smaller details, it's best to mix the color to make a puddle. The thing to keep in mind with puddles is that the more water you use, of course, your wash will be pale. You will not get the intensity, and you will have to apply more and more washes, and the more washes you apply, the duller the color becomes, right? So you can't see the paper anymore. It doesn't shine through anymore. Even in dark areas, we still need to have that certain transparency. So we need to use a lot of pigment and very little water. So that's what watercolor is all about, right? It's all water control. So I have smaller brush. This is again flat angled brush, but it's 1/2 inch, and I'm picking up lots and lots of pigment, and I'm mixing it on my palette into a puddle. And I wash my brush, of course, after each application, or try to remember to wash it, because otherwise I will get, all the colors muddy. And I think I told you that, guys, already. When I started painting with watercolors, I thought you need to make like a diluted puddle on the palette and then apply it, but it's really not that. You have to paint with watercolor pigment You do need to dilute it with water, but only to a certain extent, right? If you use too much water, it's just not going to work. The ultramarine blue is a little hard to pick up. It kind of hardened on me. I need to add some fresh paint here. Okay, so this is my puddle. It probably just looks a little black for you guys, but I'll show you. It's more of a kind of purplish color, but very neutral purple. And that's what I want, because when I start applying it, especially on top of what's already here, it's going to look black or gray, whatever we need it to look. For mostly we need black, right, for these areas. So let's work on their beaks. This is my favorite part, when you start adding details, those darker areas, everything just pops and everything starts coming together. Let's see, where's his eye? I think I got his eye in the wrong spot. Let's move it. I need to make a little correction here. I didn't get this area right, but that will be easy to do. And he's got like little tiny feathers on his face, so we can paint that as well, those details. And another way we can use this, if we pull out just a little bit more diluted color, we can use it for shadows. Like I want to paint a shadow on his beak, so I'm going to apply more diluted dark over the wash that I already have there, right? And I can also drop it in right here where there is the form turns, right, on his forehead here. And I can add a darker area here. And if this is too neutral, all I need to do is pick up some red and drop it in. And that will give me that dark red without introducing another pigment or mixing anything additionally. So I can get all these colors that I need very easily. His beak is very sharp, so I need to make it sharper. And these transitions between different areas, if they're too defined, just clean brush with some water and smooth it all out, and we're good to go. There is a darker area behind here, so I need to do the same thing right here, right? So apply a little bit of my neutral mixture. And then drop in some red. And feather, literally feather it out, right? Because we're painting feathers. Okay. See guys how this area immediately came to life? I just love when that happens. Okay, I'm just checking the messages. Let's see, are we all on the same page? Can I lift out any more of green on the right bird's wing? Show more yellow feathers. I don't hear anything, guys, like two people talking. Yeah, the recording will be available. Okay, somebody's asking. Yeah, if you get into people talking, you might have two windows open, and you know, because I'm on YouTube and I'm also on Kajabi. Let me repeat the three primary colors. So I'm using, generally I'm using Daniel Smith. So primaries will be Perlin Red, Hansa Yellow Medium, and French Ultramarine. The colors I'm actually using are Sennelier Red, that's primary red. I'm using New Gamboge, and I'm using Ultramarine Blue right here. But don't worry about, you know, getting the same pigments and, you know, worrying that other pigments will not work. Just find on your palette the 3 colors that are closest to primary red, yellow, and blue, and experiment with them, and you will, you'll be fine. Yeah, I know this area is not exactly right. This can probably be lifted. That red is pretty intense, but let's try it just out of curiosity. I have some clean water, kind of clean water on the side. So let's lift. You need to wet it, and then we can even pick it up with a dry paper towel, or we can give it a little bit of a scrub with the brush. Yeah, and like I said, red is a little hard to pick up, but we can, improve it in any case. Important, guys, after you lift color, not to start painting over it again, because it's going to be all that grainy kind of fibers. You need to let this dry, let the fibers settle, and then paint on top of it. I know it's very tempting to start correcting, but it's not going to work. All right, let's continue with the dark areas and paint this guy. I didn't answer the question. Recordings will be available. There will be a recording here in the community, and I will send everybody the YouTube link, and there might be better quality on YouTube, and there will be closed captioning added. YouTube adds it automatically after the video is processed. I think it takes them about 24 hours, maybe a little longer, so you can watch it closed captioned. And like I said, guys, it's all new technology, so I appreciate your patience and talking to me and giving me feedback, because I want to do what's best for my community. And if Kajabi doesn't really work very well, we will do something else. We will move somewhere else. So I really appreciate you letting me know what you see on your end, and so we can make improvements. I'm starting on the shadows on the wings. So you see that I'm using my neutral mixture, but I'm also varying the amount of colors that I have in it by adding sometimes more red, sometimes more blue. So we need to be kind of flexible and do what's best for our painting, right? Let's paint the purple feet. Yeah. Grabbing onto that branch. And this one, it's not super dark, so it might be a good idea to dilute the color a little bit, but you can see the color is just perfect, the one I mixed. These giant claws that they have. Okay, now we need to work on the shadows. This became a little bit too diluted, so I'm going to mix a little more pigment. Neutralize it with yellow, and I need a lot more blue. Okay, let's do this. The shadows on this, on the tails, and these big feathers in the tail are going to cast shadows. So we need to paint all this, and you see my angled brush really helps me. I can get thin straight lines. I can cover larger areas, so it's really helpful tool. I'm working on adding a video to Watercolor Hero class about my brushes, because when I created the class I didn't have these angled brushes, but I want everybody to know about them. so there will be a notification, guys, for you all when it's ready, and you can watch it and learn a little bit more about how I use these brushes. So painting shadows on the big feathers. And this area is very dark, so I need to add color here. And with it, we can darken the branch. I wiped the brush because I want to dry brush it. I want that texture, so let's add a little bit more texture to the branch. It's kind of orange on top. I guess we can use some kind of neutral orange to paint it a little bit better. Okay, this area is too light. Even though it's kind of light there, it doesn't look good in the painting, so I'm going to darken it. And this one too. What else do I need to do? I need to paint shadows in the middle here between these guys, right? That's what I have left to do. Mix a little bit more paint and paint a little bit of texture here between them. Dark shadow here. I want to paint this shadow, this core shadow, right? Can't go heavy-handed because it's pretty subtle, so I'm going to dilute my neutral color and apply it over the red. It's also a little bit darker here, and the shadow kind of goes down a little bit. And to transition, see how I created a hard edge here? I don't want that, so I'm going to use red to lift this out. Maybe even drop some yellow to lighten it. It does need to be a little bit dark over here, I think. Okay, this is this, so we need a little bit darker area here. Oops, too much, right? The wing needs to be lighter. Let's drop some red there. There's a subtle shadow here, and there are shadows down here and under the wing. Okay, this area is drying nicely. I'm going to drop some, I'm actually going to drop some lemon yellow there to make it lighter. And we can transition. There are like little details here. We can add some details. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for my birdies. Last thing I want to do, guys, and it's totally optional. There is a little bit of a background behind them. I can leave them like that, but I do like to connect. They're connected to these sides of the paper and to the bottom, right? And the top is not connected. I think some kind of vertical anchoring will look good, and we'll do this in a second. Let me look at your comments. Okay, yes, thank you so much, Jen. Full screen mode is better on Kajabi, so that's interesting. It's good to know. Alrighty, I think nobody, yeah, I answered all the other questions. All right, so should we do the background? I think we should, right? We have a few more minutes. Let's see. So I have this neutral color. I'll show you the sketch, guys, that I did for these birds. And I painted the background. That's what I'm trying to do right now. But see, it's kind of brown color, so I think there was too much red in it. And what happens if the color is warm? It pushes forward, right? So we definitely want to make sure if we do this background that it's cool. So I need a little more blue in this mixture. Make sure that it's not warm, but it's cool, so that it will stay in the background. I don't want bright blue, obviously. I don't want primary blue, but I don't want that a lot of red in it either. So let's see, we'll just do some dry brushing with a big brush. And maybe something, I don't know, something like this on this side, just to anchor those birds. And I think that's enough. Important to stop right at the right moment. This branch can be a little more interesting. The feet dried, and because I used that diluted color, I need a little more definition on the feet. Let's just use, I think if we use just purple or like mostly blue, it will be fine. I just want to put a couple brush strokes here to make this even better and give them a little more definition. It's one of the darkest areas in my painting, right? So it needs to be defined. And down here as well. Just kind of finishing touches. What we can do as well is use white ink and make small corrections. So yeah, kind of the beaks can be a little bit better. The form can be a little bit better defined. So let's do that. I bought new ink, guys. You haven't seen this. This is called Calligraphy ink by Winsor & Newton. It's pretty good. It's not as opaque as Dr. P.H. Martin's Pen White. This is old already, so it started drying on me. I can't use it out of the bottle anymore. I have to dilute it, so I thought fresh ink will be nice to have, but it's pretty runny, so I don't know. I'm still on the fence about this one. I think I'll use my Dr. P.H. Martin's for now. Just grab some out of the bottle, and I always put it on the palette. Don't dip your dirty brush in the white ink, right? Because you will just ruin the whole bottle. All right. It's actually not so bad. I think I can use it just straight out. So if you have some pencil maybe left and showing, or you just, you know, the detail are not quite as defined as you want them to be, just grab a little bit of opaque ink, gouache, or pens, markers, whatever you have, and just add tiny little details, and they really make a difference. I got this on him, and I'll show you guys what I'm going to do in just a minute. He's got like a little bit of like shine going on his feathers. First of all, I can separate the background from the main subject with white ink, and also I can grab some ink and grab some yellow watercolor and mix it in. This is a bad thing to do, guys, but I'm just trying to finish and let you all go. So we can add some lighter yellow here, which will be good for our form, maybe on this guy as well. So we can make them, and this area that didn't quite work out for me, right, I can also define it a little bit better with mixture of white ink, and it's toned down with the color of watercolor that I need. There are some like lighter edges on these feathers. And maybe on these ones as well, we can put just a couple of brush strokes. And I think that's enough. So you see how it all kind of became even more three-dimensional, in my opinion. All right, this is the final painting, painted very, very quickly. So let me know, guys, what you think. Let me look at the comments one more time. Do you have more than Daniel Smith colors? Well, yes, I'm trying to scale down my palette and just switch to Daniel Smith, not because they're the greatest watercolor in the world, and they're good quality professional watercolors. It's just easier when you need to get new colors. It's just easier to go in one spot and order what you need. I do have a couple of Holbein colors. This one is called, I always get them mixed up. This is called Scarlet Lake, and this one is called Crimson Lake. These are Holbein colors, and I really like them because this is kind of in between orange and red. This is warm red, and this is, it's cool red, but it's not as purple as magenta, so it has a little more red. They're not critical to have, but I've been using them for a while, especially for floral paintings. They work really well. So these are the two Holbein colors that I have, and I have a few Sennelier colors, and Sennelier is great quality. I love their watercolors. I mean, all their art materials are amazing. Of course, they're pretty pricey, so I'm using the Sennelier red. This is primary red, and I bought this color. This is called Royal Blue. I thought it would be great for landscapes, and it is, but it's semi-transparent. So to make this color, they obviously had to add white into it, so it's not completely transparent, so you have to be a little bit careful with it. But I think I do have some Winsor & Newtons. So I have Winsor Red, which is primary red. They're kind of interchangeable with Sennelier red, so I'm thinking of phasing them out eventually because I don't need some, two primary reds. Don't make sense. I have Antwerp blue by Winsor & Newton, which is a kind of greenish neutral blue, also good for like seascapes and things like that. Let's see, and that's about it. Yeah, everything else I have is Daniel Smith, so that's my palette. I have the description of my palette with all the pigments posted on my YouTube channel. It's the first community post on YouTube channel. If you go to my channel, there is a tab that says community, and just scroll all the way down, and there is the palette. And I guess I can post it in this community as well, so you have a reference point. But so these are my colors. Let's see what. Okay, lots of thank yous. Thank you so much, guys. I think since there are no more questions, like I said, if you go to the community, it's a product in your library on Kajabi. If you go to community, there will be chat on the left hand side. You can click on that. You can post questions. I will post a challenge tomorrow to paint these parrots, and there will be a link to the reference photo one more time, and I will post a link to YouTube replay as well. So if you try the subject today, you will have until we will meet next time in 2 weeks on Saturday as well. So you will have plenty of time to try it and challenge yourself to paint with limited palette with just 3 colors. I think it will be very interesting experiment. Interesting way to learn, and post your painting on the community in the chat as well, because I'd love to see your paintings. Next time I'm thinking maybe we will do some freehand exercises, so also let me know, guys, if that's something you're interested in. I think I showed you already. I might have put them away. I found some reference for people, so I thought we could try that and just paint some freehand figures. If you never painted people before, don't worry about it. I will show you how to do it. It will be fairly easy, and even if they don't quite turn out the way you want them to be, it will be a great exercise for brush control. So definitely plan on joining me in 2 weeks on Saturday. You will all get reminders and announcements and everything. And I just want to thank you for joining me today, for bearing with all the technical stuff that we're still trying to figure out. And keep painting, and I'm looking forward to seeing your paintings. Thank you so much, guys.